Hey everybody, welcome to the Lysandre Division Season 3 PRs. I'm joined here by our fearless leader, Steering. Say hi to the people.
Hello, hello.
So we were here today. We got the PRs done before too many weeks in. Not even the first week over yet, so we're
Halfway
actually
through week one.
Exactly. Better late than never. But we got some PRs for you. We're gonna go ahead and rank all 12 coaches from the top division from least optimized to best. That's the nice way to saying it.
We'll go with that, yeah.
And we have a little breakdown here of the system we're going to be using to score each team. So, yeah, we tried to be as objective as possible. These represent the teams, not the coaches. You could be a great coach with a bad team or a bad coach with a great team. It's always possible. So, we tried to make this tailored as specifically to almost any ability as possible. So there's some things that might be weighted differently based on if this was like standard singles or this. So just kind of starting off, offense, obviously a team's ability to close games and break through opponents' defense. Defense is your ability to resist that. Utility is hazards, pivots, knockoffs, things that make your opponent's life harder and yours easier. And now for some more kind of things that are tailored for this format. I don't know if you want to go into them, man, but we have some other stuff here.
So unaware users here, especially in this format when there's sweepers everywhere, it's how good is your unaware user? Can it recover? Can it take those hits that it needs to? And can it just keep your team alive and stop you from getting swept? Priority is pretty strong here as well with Aerialate and Galvanize, Pixelate, all of that running around. Priority becomes a lot stronger, and so how reasonable are your priority threats, especially because they don't check for speed, obviously. A little more of a standard one is types here, just defensive and offensive typings. The thing added here is a solid defensive dark is a lot more important in this format with all of the stored power users and psychic surgers running around. Obviously, a ground is still important for electric surgers as well. And if your steel can get trapped or not, because magnet pull is an ability, and good steels will just get trapped and killed off via magnet pull or be forced to run shed shell. Speed tiers. This is only obviously the same as standard, but this is only out of 3 because of all of the unburden and speed boost running around in the format. So it's just not as important. If you don't have good speed tiers, just run an ability to cover it up. And just as a 1 here, do you have phasers? Can you stop a sweep in another way if your unaware user isn't good enough to do so?
Right, exactly. So yeah, that's pretty much everything we're going to be scoring these teams off. And obviously, disclaimer: this is not the be all end all. This is just what we thought. So, all right, do you want to get started off and start running through the teams here?
Sure.
Alrighty.
I guess I'll take the first one then. I guess.
Sounds good. So at number 12, we've got the Houston Hoopa, coached by AZ.
All right. So first thing I noticed about this team is, I think I looked at it and I'm like, okay, its offense is very sort of one-dimensional. It's very physical, very physically oriented with Melmetal and Garchomp. Of course, it's very powerful with those two, but after that, it's just and Breloom's also a good physical attacker. After that, your specials like Hoopa, which struggles to get in a lot of the time, and Torrentee only has a 110 special attack, so it's not that strong. There's a lack of phasing on the team. I mean, yeah, it's just Torn really. Not much else there. Also a lack of priority on this team, with only having a Breloom to do most of that work, most of the heavy lifting on the priority there. The defense is also lacking a bit here. DOD has to carry a lot of the defensive load on this team, as well as Clefable, but Clefable's stats tend to not hold up as well in a format when everything has a lot more power added to it.
Exactly. Yeah, Clefable has a tough time in this format, given that it's a mod that survives off of its good abilities, and when anything can have those, its value is significantly less, and it provides a lot less to a team.
Of course. A lot of time as well as we go through these teams, we're going to be, I guess, pointing out mons that don't really do much in this format, are drafted for a role and they don't really perform it. Like Thievul here as a dark type isn't going to cut it at all as your dark in this format, which is why your types are so low. Your steel is trappable in Melmetal. This team also doesn't have a fire type or a water type, one of which is the most common type, and a fire type here helps with their fairy weakness and their ice weakness that are scattered out throughout this draft.
Right, a nice bulky fire type could go a long way here. Granted, there's not many of those left on the board. If you're thinking of transactions, I personally think a Volcanion could go a long way here. Something big, bulky. It gets both those types.
Both, true. I think he did make a few transactions. I think he grabbed like an Archon and a Shift Tree as his dark.
Right.
Which does make it a little bit better, but I don't think it helps him climb out of this 12 spot necessarily because they're just lower tier transactions.
Right. Yeah. I think with a couple moves, this team could be significantly scarier. I mean, you do have a solid offensive backbone here with just these huge breakers. And Torn's a great utility mon, a great pivot to help them get in. And so is Deoxys with teleport. So I think it's just a couple pieces away from being a significantly stronger team.
I think, specifically the Volcanion there. If you dropped like a Hoopa for a Volcanion, this team would be a lot scarier of a threat, both specially and defensively with Volcanion's roll coverage.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Moving right along, we have number 11s in the Iowa Jolteons, coached by Thriller. He's a new coach, and he actually had our first pick, and you can tell because he has Dragapult. So going through his list, we have utility as a 3 out of 10, and you might think that, well, he's got some pivots. Dragapult's great. Regieleki, Scissor, always going to bring a pivot move, but that's about where it ends. And one of the big detriments that this team has is that the only form of hazards is Galarian Stunfisk, which only has Stealth Rock, which most of the mons that are going to be weak to Stealth Rock are going to have a way around it in this format. Like, for example, I have Cinderace. I'll bring Boots or Magic Guard almost every single week and just pretend that they're not there.
Or Libero.
Exactly. So that definitely goes a lot against this team. The offense, it's definitely scary. I mean, Dragapult, you always have to prep super hard for that. Conkeldurr with Triage is amazing. Regieleki is it's okay, and Scissor is a good setup sweeper.
Even Houndoom can...
Right, exactly. But one of the biggest problems here is just the defense. There's nothing here that can really take a hit. I mean, we saw, this is one of the matches that's already been played. Galarian Slowking was the unaware user, but even then it just didn't get the job done. It could just get overpowered too easily.
Scissor's your other option in that, and it still just gets overpowered.
Right, exactly.
And to backtrack a second as well, when your Rocker's only your worst mon on your team, that can also get trapped and punished, it doesn't do you well.
Right, exactly. Like Galarian Stunfisk, it'll stoke up physical hits, but it doesn't matter if it gets trapped and then roasted by a fire move, and that's GG from there. So
very common.
Yeah, so like we said earlier, unaware user 1.5, it's Galarian Slowking. I don't even see a possibility where you run anything else. Yeah, that's true. Priority is 3 out of 3. We do have Scissor here for bullet punch fun, and Regieleki for extreme speed with Galvanize, Refrigerate. Right.
It's that Conkeldurr is the big one.
And the Conkeldurr is the biggest one of all.
Also, Tapu Bulu gets Triage Horn Leech.
Oh, actually, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So
I'm not even thinking right here. So yeah, 3 out of 3. Great job there. Typing is pretty good. You've got a good water type, a good grass. The thing I'm lacking here is the Mega Houndoom for your fire. Mega Houndoom, I don't think very many Megas are good in this format at all, and I don't think Houndoom is one of the good ones, unfortunately. The fun of running Drought into Solar Power is super appealing. It sounds great, but someone switches in a Primordial Sea and then you're just SOL.
Especially in a division where a lot of players here have A, draft experience, and B, AAA experience. They will always bring some form of Primordial Sea just to be able to check that Houndoom set. Right. And then it's just kind of a sitting duck. Exactly. It's already mega if you're not getting your sun back.
Yeah, the Fairy Dragon Steel is nice on this team. Dragapult, Scissor, and Bulu are all good mons. Galarian Stunfisk is not your steal. For speed tiers, you definitely got some fast mons, that's for sure. These two, and then there's a huge gap to, what would it be, Mega Houndoom and Tauros?
It'd be Mega Houndoom, Tauros, yeah.
Yeah, and then another decent-sized gap to Gyarados. And
80.
Everything slower than that's going to be running priority.
Yeah, pretty much. There's just it's not the top tiers in this draft, it's the mid tiers that are kind of just weak, so like everything under 100 can really just run adamant on this team.
Exactly. Yeah, so then in terms of phasers, what is the phaser here? Is it Tauros, Gyarados?
I think Scizor got Whirlwind. I think that's it.
Yeah, and either way,
something else I'm missing.
Yeah, the thing is, there's not. It's kind of the same thing with the unaware. There's nothing with the bulk that can do that job, right? Like you have to find something with, like, I don't know, Haze maybe, Prankster Haze. That's all I.
There's something there. I think. I just don't remember what it is. It's arguably a 0 on that phasing because it's just not great.
Yeah.
But there's something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this team has the offensive potential and the priority dominance to maybe get around that. But I still, if that mon's gone, then you need to have something else to deal with it.
This team's really got to play on the front foot almost all the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Itself work really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, moving on to number 10, we have Drake with the Montreal Dragapults. Do you want to run through it?
Sure, I'll take this one. All right, first thing, lowest ranking there is the priority there. This team doesn't. It's Barraskewda Aquajet. It's the only priority in this format. It's a 40 base power move. Obviously, not that strong, especially off of Barraskewda with like 130 something speed already. Mm-hmm. Not amazing.
Just a bit
this team's offense is very, very scary. I'll start off with Gengar G-Zap is a great offensive core with Noivern and Barraskewda as well. You've got 2 very strong special attackers, 2 very strong physical attackers, crazy breaking potential on all 4 of those mons. Mm-hmm. The rest of that offense is lacking. It's a little bit, obviously it could be higher. The reason it's lower is because it's lacking a lot of setup potential, a lot of bulky setup offense.
The only mon on this team that really sets up could be G-Zap and maybe Mudsdale.
Nasty Plot Gengar is also a thing.
That's true. It's just so, like, there's nothing here that sets up and can take a couple hits, It's like you have that one opportunity to do it.
True, especially in a format where everything's just stronger than it was before.
Right, exactly.
You're never getting that up. Types, very average, very fine. Trapple Steel and Ferrothorn, so it's something that actually really wants to run Primordial Sea all the time. Struggles to run. It has to run Magnet Pull. Like, it's very one-dimensional in this case because of the Trapple Steel that has to run Primordial Sea. Mm-hmm. So it's always Shed Shell plus Primordial Sea. What else is there? There's a few type weaknesses on this team. Rotom Heat helps a lot with that as well. You're going to have an ice weakness without that mon there, so that helps. It exacerbates just a lot of the weaknesses in general. Your Fairy being a Wigglytuff isn't really great either.
Yeah, that's kind of what it comes down to. The defense is, there's a lot of pressure put on Umbreon, Ferrothorn, and then Mudsdale. So it's obviously those are 3 good defensive mons, but like you said, Ferrothorn is a trappable steel that doesn't have recovery outside of Leech Seed because you have to run Shed Shell every week. Yeah. But if you run something like a grass type magnet pull, then Ferrothorn, and it has its item knocked off, that's just done. It will eventually go down, and then that puts so much pressure on these other 2 here.
I honestly like the Musharna pick of this team as well. I think the fighting weakness is massive on this team, and Musharna actually gives them a bulky psychic that can switch into those fighting.
Yeah, I was looking at Musharna for sure. It's like surprisingly bulky. It has a great move pool too. So I think
on this team it fixes those types. It really fixes those types and the weakness it has to fighting. So I think this team's good. Misses a couple things, but good overall. Definitely could use some more priority. Yeah, a big jump up from the bottom 2.
Right.
As well as you can see in the total score, it went up about 3 points.
Yeah, 29 to 32.5.
Yeah, 3.5.
All right. Yeah. Moving right on along, we have Glop in the city Pokemon. So looking off right here, we have utility as 7.5 out of 10. You have Lando T for rocks. I think Terrakion gets that as well. But that's about it in terms of hazards. You are going to be able to keep them off if you want to. You have Togekiss with Defog. And also Decidueye with Defog, right? And Decidueye is a good option because if you you're going to be able to get hazards off. You won't be able to stack them as much, but this team does have right, and it has an amazing unaware user with P2, who's going to be a unaware teleport pivot pretty much every single week, but that's good enough. Porygon 2 never goes down in a hit, especially if it doesn't care about your boosts. But
also, Togekiss can do it if need be. Decidueye can do it if need be. There's other options outside of the Porygon 2 if need be.
Right. Yeah. This team, it has a decent offensive output with Victini and Terrakion, but then you also see most of this offense is physical. Right. You can run Specs Victini, but you're missing out on that sweet V create. Tarak, Lando, and Metagross all want to go physical. The only special threat here is Togekiss and arguably Decidueye, which can go mixed. But that does kind of hurt the offense. It makes it easier to prep for. There are ways around it, sure, but it makes your life a lot harder.
especially Dauntless shielding and ability.
Exactly.
It does make it very easy, like a lot easier to check those physical threats.
Right. Like a good bulky physical water type is going to give this team a lot of hassle if it can play around Decidueye.
For sure. No phasing, really, outside of Landorus. And that thing just wants to be a little bit more offensive in this format than it normally is. The types are, I think it was iffy. There's no dragon on this team, I think was the big one that I got at.
No dragon.
No fairy either, I think. No.
We got Lucas.
Yeah. Also, your Dark is the Alolan Grimer.
Yeah.
And Sneasel. But
if that thing, if Alolan Grimer ever shows up, then...
that's your bulky Dark.
Yeah, God help us. All right, so definitely a nice team. It might have some issues with some of the typing synergy and just not having the resistances that it wants, but definitely a team that can get the job done, I'd say.
Wants a special offensive piece as well in this, but
yeah. Moving on to number 8, we have Tay's team. If you want to grab this one, because this is a very familiar team for me.
Yes, it is. You know them. First thing, types very, very solid on this team. There's really no weakness in your types here. Like Zarude is a solid dark. You have your Fire, Water, Grass in Moltres, Seismitoad. And Zarude, your Fairy, Dragon, Steel in Mega Diancie. Plus Altaria, Dragon. And Jirachi is your Steel. Jirachi is the single best Steel in the format. Being able to apply so much, do so many things while also being just so defensively scary.
It's impossible.
Scary.
It's impossible to counter Jirachi.
Of course. Snorlax, you know that mon pretty well. Yeah. There.
Great mon.
Good mon, of course. And that all just adds up to building that team's defense to a very strong and solid point. Unaware user is very much lacking on this team though, because everything on this team wants to run P-Heal or Regen because there's really no natural recovery outside of Moltres.
Right. Yeah. A lot of it's going to be if you really need to stop that setup or that setup sweeper, I'd say maybe Dusclops is the best option. But even then, there's so many other things Dusclops would rather have as its ability. Yeah. Like it would love Regenerator, like you said, but if it has to run Unaware, then that's what it has to do.
Yeah. Or like Wish Protects Unaware Jirachi would be your other one.
Right. Exactly.
Not great.
Priority.
Speed tiers.
Yeah.
The big one. The priority isn't really there. It's pretty. I mean, Zarude is your priority.
Yeah.
And it's a great priority, but that's it.
So yeah, Zarude's a great priority, but Grass is such a subpar offensive type. It'd be great to have another option there, but that's
also just being to counter terrain that as well is pretty common, especially for a really strong Grassy Glider.
Yeah.
Speed tiers, they may seem fine on paper, like Mega Diancie's at 110, Zarude at 105, Jirachi at 100, but that Mega Diancie obviously is to Mega Evolve first to be able to get that speed tier. And in this format, Megas are almost never Mega Evolving turn 1. Zarude being a priority user makes that speed tier a little bit weaker, and obviously Jirachi being a defensive mon more times than not also means it's not a real speed tier necessarily.
Right.
Which knocks those speed tiers down a lot.
Yeah, so it's a very mid-speed team, and that means a lot of things can run Adamant and get over them. They have things are 10% easier when you can do that. So
yeah, of course. Otherwise, everything on the team is pretty average. Your utility is average. Your offense is pretty average.
Yeah,
your defense is a lot better here.
You have a good phaser in Dusclops. Haze is always going to get the job done, especially with that bulk. So. Yeah.
There's, not to mention Whirlwind Snorlax popping.
Oh, let's not mention that. All right. Moving on along, we have the Amsterdam Rams from Saigai. We've given this team a 6 out of 10 for utility. Hazards are kind of reliant on Drapion and Lando if you want rocks. Archeops might get that. Yeah. Yeah, this team is incredibly powerful. You have a solid core of potential just world enders. Archeops, obviously, Tailglow, Manaphy, Raikou is a great mon, Landorus Incarnate is amazing, Lucario's okay, even Trevenant's pretty good for a Grassy Glider, but this team's real problem is just the defense. Nothing here can take a hit outside of Cresselia, and your defensive core every week is going to be Cress and Drapion. And
I refuse to believe Aromatisse is a real defensive mon in this format.
Yeah, it's not. VGC, sure, not AAA. So
Single is good too.
Yeah, Cresselia, Drapion, you need to run those as defensively as possible each week, but they do have crippling weaknesses that you can take advantage of. Cresselia, you can get some status on it if it's not Poison Heal, and if it is Poison Heal, it's not Unaware. and then you can stack up on it. Drapion, it has the ground weakness. If it wants to run Levitate, it can't run Regenerator, and then it can't heal. So it's a lot of tough choices that these two mons are going to have to make every week.
It's going to be a lot of, again, keeping that pressure on your opponent. And I think this team, unlike the other teams we said this to, can actually keep that pressure with the pivots it has and the powerful offense it's got.
Yeah. This is another team where if it gets on the back foot, it's going to struggle, but it'll be able to keep the momentum going, I think. Unaware, obviously, Cresselia. Priority does have 3 out of 3. Raikou is a very good mon. It does have extreme speed, which is something you almost never see in a regular format, but when you can give it a fun type, it suddenly gets a lot better.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you got Lucario and Trevenant as well for other options of priority, so definitely a lot of things to be worried about on this team.
Of course, very offensively threatening. Again, once you can pop that defense, but still very scary to be able to face and have to prep for all of those offensive threats.
As for typings here, we see they're not quite the best. Water, Manaphy's a great water, but then for your grasses and fires, they're kind of low tiers. Trevenant is significantly better than a Alolan Exeggutor, which I don't think is very good as a dragon either. So I could see maybe swapping that out for something else.
Drapion, also your dark when you already have a huge lenience on it to be a defensive piece.
Right. Yeah. As for Fair Dragon Steel, we see maybe a fairy. I'll let you decide that. Lucario's not a defensive steel, and
there's no dragon.
Yeah.
Oh, Alolan Exeggutor, like it's weaker defensive cores on this team.
Right, and that's what contributes to that 4.5 out of 10 for defense. So definitely a team that needs to be piloted very carefully, which makes it a lot harder to use your big, powerful cannons. But there's definitely potential here. It just, you need to make sure you make the proper plays each turn, because one wrong turn with this team can snowball quickly against you.
Of course, of course.
Yeah. All right, moving on to 6, the Seattle Swellows, coached by Sly.
So I'm covering this one again, especially because Poppin and Sly play each other beforehand. So this team is, I think, very, very average is what when I was looking at this originally. Defense, a little bit on the weaker side, being Mew, who sometimes doesn't want to do it. Florges, the Blade, type Null, is a little bit on the weaker side there, a little bit breakable. The offense on this team really scary, with Weavile, Mew being a huge threat, Komo being a great priority user, and having so many different offensive sweeping sets. Thundy T, I can't begin to outline how scary that mon is.
Yeah.
Both Thunderous forms in this format, with being able to run Bolt Beam coverage, or just strong sheer 4 sets. Types, again, they're fine here. I think that's just it. It's just fine. Nothing else. I mean, when you have a Ditto, you kind of lose a lot of the types that you want to be able to have because you drafted a Ditto, but that's still a good mon in this format to be able to scout for abilities and knowledge on your opponent's sets. That's really it. There's not much to say about the team. Just it's very average. The Unaware comes from Mew and type Null somewhat, but as you can see, it's across the board.
Yeah,
very similar.
I think this team's kind of let down by those bottom 3 picks there. Oricorio it's just too frail. It's really not going to get the job done. Even though you can bring 4 types of Oricorio, they're not really, any of them are not really good enough. Rampardos is a meme, and Pukumuku is just magic bounce food. Literally doesn't learn an attacking move.
It's a Pukumuku. That's not much else to say about it.
Yeah. And then Florges and Deblade really, they're great at what they do. Florges, amazing special wall. Deblade, great physical, and also cannot be trapped, which is awesome. This thing is it's the perfect physical pivot. If it only got like an actual pivot move, that'd be great. But
of course,
yeah.
I think a lot of that team as well, if you go back to it for a second, it just leans on Mew a little bit. Like especially for its defensive cores. Like if you have a Ditto as well, taking that spot, you're leaning on that Mew a lot for your hazard game, for your defensive game, and sometimes for your special offensive game, and it's just a little bit taxing for that mon.
Right. Yeah.
That's why I'm doing it. But.
Yeah, I do say I really do like this Fairy Dragon Steel core here. Of these 3, they're coming every week, I would imagine.
Most weeks, I think.
Yeah, they cover each other so well, and then Weavile and Mew are scary enough. Where this is definitely a good team. We're in the top half now. This is a good team. It just there's a couple points here that are kind of disappointing that I would like to personally have changed if I owned this team, but we already saw it.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, he's already won a game, so he definitely has an idea with his team and has plans with it. So I'd like to see how it goes on in the forward. And
you find out these teams are really solid, especially
right.
like if you look at those total scores anyways, even the last two are all like 34 and above. The highest team is like I think it's like below 40.
Yeah, exactly. So all these teams are pretty well close together.
Yeah,
anybody can beat anybody. All right.
Yeah, for sure.
Moving on to number 5, we have the Compton Criplups. Love that name. So let's see what we got here. We have Greninja at a full 20 points. It still got picked. So we've got that. Heatran, Zap, Haxorus, Swampert, Serena, and then some kind of questionable mods down here. Yeah, so let's talk about this. We have utility. We have the pivots. We have Greninja, Zapdos, Swampert, even Serena. So you're definitely going to be able to move around as you desire. You have the hazards, Greninja, Heatran, Swampert. One of those 3 is going to bring hazards, I would imagine, each week, and it's probably going to be Swampert.
Also Frostlass, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Frostlass too. Unaware, you could. I don't remember what we said the unaware was.
It's weird spot. It's weird, right? Like there's 3 options on this team for unaware, none look good. It's like you can run unaware Zapdos, but that's not. Then you can't run Primordial Sea. You can run unaware Swampert, but then you're not running Regenerator or P-Heal. You can run unaware Serena, but then you're not running Grassy Glide or Regen AV.
Yeah.
You can fit it, it just doesn't work.
This team's answer to setup sweepers is Destiny Bond Frostlass, and that's pretty telegraphed.
Or any priority from Serena and Alcremie.
Yeah.
Or Greninja, but not really. Also, that's Protein Greninja, just to outline for people not watching.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so this is the scary Greninja. And we kind of see that in the offense here. Greninja, Heatran, Zapdos, Haxorus. Like, holy shit, have fun dealing with all 4 of those every week.
Yeah.
And not to mention, you have Serena, Swampert, who can go offensive if it wants to, and then it won't. But it could.
Frostlass can.
Right, exactly.
Season 1.
Types are great. We have fire, water, grass, and a bulky water too. Then we have steel, a kind of a fairy, and a good dragon. So, yeah, this is a good team. Speed tiers are great. It'll be hard to prep for.
For sure. Yeah, it's really, I'll say, defense a little bit lacking again with the unaware user, and a lot of your things wanting to be offensive.
Yeah.
But it can be squeezed on there.
Yeah. Also, Grubbin's here. Moving on to number 4, we have the Las Vegas Ludicolo Rin. You also might notice a pattern with these top 5 teams, but we're not going to say it. We have 7 out of 10, 7 out of 10 utility.
Right.
Oh wait, I've been letting you cover the evens. You can
I'll take some.
I've been talking too much.
I think biggest thing to look at is types and defense, both insanely good with this team. That defensive core: Feeny, Himpo, Kofag, Probopass, very very strong. I mean, you have the best defensive mod in the game in Feeny. Hippo is one of the best physical walls. Kofag is grand as well. Probopass is going to be your special anchor. Don't hate on that thing. It's great. Trust me.
Yep.
Mesprit even can pick up some of that with its all across the board stats. Let me see. Types, very solid as well. You've got pretty good Darkened Hydreigon. Your Fairy Dragon Steel is there with Feeny, Probopass, and Hydreigon. Your Fire, Water, Grass, and Entei, wherever the water is, Feeny, and Mega Sceptile, which is actually still a viable Mega.
Yes.
Unaware users are a little bit iffy because it's just Hippowdon, and you're very, I guess, forced. Like special setup sleepers can easily break this team open.
Yeah. The only kind of maybe you could do unaware me spread. I'm thinking trying to get creative, but I don't.
Doesn't recover.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So it's like unaware Feeny, but even then, right, not great. Speed tiers are pretty good. That's very simple. It just that there's a gap between Sceptile and everything else. Yeah. But I think there's one more thing there, but not too big. Priority and Mega Sceptile is pretty solid. You also have Entei being a very good E-speeder.
Fire plus whatever coverage type you want is amazing.
Generally electric for those pesky waters.
Yep.
Solid utility too. Hippowdon's a great rocker, and we'll be running it every single damn week.
Yep. Rocks, Roar. What else do you want?
Rocks, yeah, there you go. A lot of fairly good pivot and Thunderous, Hydreigon, Mesprit, and Probopass. And then just, I mean, the defog game's a little bit weak on this team, but everything else is there. Knock users are there too.
Yeah, for sure. This is a very
Malamar's
solid
a questionable pick.
Yeah, that's a prankster topsy turvy and nothing else.
It's a wasted 3 points.
Yep. Moving on to number 3, we have the Soviet Slowpokes, coached by a bad coach. The only coach on this league. I mean, it says it right there in the title.
True, he's bad.
So we've got a scary team here, everybody. We got Zera Aura, Latios, Steela, Mandibuzz, Primarina. This looks kind of familiar. Darmanitan. This is a team full of stacked mons, minus like what 2 of these. So
the bottom 2. I
right.
think Quilladin's got good value too.
Yeah, if you look at offense, it's here. Zera Aura is terrifying. Latios is a cannon. Celesteela is it's one of the best mons, just period. Offense, it's got it. Defense, it can do it. And then if you want to actually talk about defensive mons, oh yeah, also Primarina and Darm are fucking bananas. And then defense, you have Mandibuzz, who is my favorite pivot in this format. It is so unbelievably good. It is the best unaware user. It is the best pivot. It has roost. Nothing more you could ask from it.
Yeah. Even Primarina as a defensive mon, it's just baby Feeny. It still has the defensive stats pulled up.
Exactly. Runerigus is just different Cofagrigus. I don't know if I would say better or not. But it's different.
Different, yeah. Mm-hmm. Quilladin even has pretty decent defensive utility.
Exactly. And a Violite with that low HP stat, Leech Seed is incredibly annoying.
Of course.
So, moving on along here, like we said, unaware Mandibuzz is the best. Priority's kind of lacking. I see it from Primarina and maybe Zera if you want to go crazy.
Yeah, it's very niche.
Speed tiers, we do have a pretty significant gap between 143 and then 110. So
yeah,
a bit of a gap there, and then a bit more of a gap. So that also could be improved.
It's the mid end as well that's a little bit weak on this team. Like Vanillux is like your base 80, and there's nothing below that. And Vanillux is not a Pokemon, so it's I'm gonna set Veil and then die instantly. Pokemon. At least he has Veil for the agility though.
So yeah, that's true. That's true. Phaser, we already talked about it. It's the best.
Yeah.
Moving right along to number 2. I know this team a bit too well to be non-biased, so I'll let you talk about it.
I'll take this one. Number 2, it's Poppin's team, Phoenix Suns. You can go watch his video for a little bit more in-depth analysis on this here, on his team, because he did do an in-depth analysis on his own team. So I'm just going to quickly go over most of it. Utility is very much there, with Necrozma being able to do it, Skarmory being the utility Pokemon in this game, Cheetar having rocks as well. The pivots there in Koko, Cinderace, Vaporeon is a good bulky pivot. Celebi can pivot, I believe. Yep. Persian as well has a pivot, I think.
Yep.
Again, not too much knowledge on Persian as a Pokemon. Poliwrath is a great steal of a Pokemon here at 3, with still very good bulk for the format, something we missed as a mod team.
Yeah. When I was looking at it, I saw Poliwrath in 3 with, it's like 90, 95, 95, and it gets Belly Drum. Like, why wouldn't I pick that?
Yeah, of course. Great pick. Speed tiers are a little bit iffy here, I think, in the mid-end of this draft. Like, you have Cinderace, Koko, and then a fall-off, especially when Celebi wants to be defensive sometimes, or it's running Grassy Glide offensive, where, well, you're running max HP on that generally. Priority, again, it's also just that Celebi pretty much, and Sucker Punch Cinderace. I guess Quick Attack Koko too, but it's a little bit weaker than some of the other teams here in terms of its priority. Same thing with the defense. You're leaning a lot on Skarmory for that, as well as Celebi and Cheetar, but those are sometimes not offensive or don't want to be offensive. That offense is, though, pretty crazy. Necrozma with a lot of setup potential. Koko's a great breaker. Cinderace a great breaker. It is missing that raw special breaker, but otherwise it has every other component you could want, and prepping for that Necrozma is going to be a pain in the ass. Otherwise, that's really it. The types are fine. There's not much to say about it. Trappable Steel and Skarmory is a little bit interesting, but I know there was Corv and Steela gone before this.
It's a bit sad.
But yeah, it's a very solid team overall, and that's why it has a 38. So.
Alrighty. So that brings us to the last team, and you may have noticed who hasn't been talked about yet. It's your boy Steering. Look at that.
Once
39.5 out of 50. Best ranked team. So, let's talk about it. You've got Utility at a 6 out of 10. Hazards, we have Infernape, I think Stunfisk probably, and then Excelgor, an underrated mon that I've really had my eye on for a couple seasons now, and I just never went for it. I think it's a hazard machine. And then in terms of in terms of getting rid of hazards, you're great at that. You've got Corv.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, but the Corv is the best at that. And then you do have the pivots that you need to get in your big scary threats. Corv, Milo, Infernape, all able to get out of maybe even Sunfisk. And, yeah.
Sunfisk doesn't have it.
Oh, it doesn't have Volt Switch? That's fucking stupid.
I wish it did, but...
All right, anyways, yeah. But let's talk about the real highlight of this team, the offense. We have D-Knight, Lele, Infernape, and even Mega Abomasnow, honestly. Crazy mons. Dragonite is probably... I used to think Pult was the best mon of the format, but I've been kind of swayed towards Dragonite. This thing is so bulky, has extreme speed, has the types to synergize with it. It never dies, and especially not when you have it paired with Corviknight, who covers like almost everything this guy's weak to. And you have just such a solid Fairy Dragon Steel right here, right off the bat. A great pick for, like, this was your first 3 picks, right? This is in order?
Yes, that was 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, so perfect synergy right there. Lele is absolutely terrifying. I know from experience this thing just gets Okos. And even like Milotic can do some pretty decent damage. Muck is an annoying pivot that also gets poisons and knocks off stuff. And our Infernape is just a beast, so...
Great steel trapper.
Yeah, exactly. Great stuff there. Unaware, you have 3 out of 3. It can be either of these two, and it's going to do a great job. 5 yeah.
in the format.
Prio's 3 out of 3. Solidly Dragonite, maybe Infernape, but Dragonite by itself is a 3 out of 3 for priority. No further questions.
Muck's got it too. Mega Abomasnow's got it.
Right.
To add to it a little bit. So this is Selgor, but like on that one.
Typing is 8 out of 10. Your Fairy Dragon Steel, like we said, is incredible. Fire Water Grass has a bit more to be desired. Abomasnow's not the best. It has that
Gloom.
Yeah, Gloom. There you go. Gloom might be honestly might be a better defensive grass.
Wall's Melmetal.
Yep, there you go. I mean, it's got strength sap. That's all you need. Speed tiers are pretty decent. What's the top end here? We have Infernape.
My top end is Selgor.
Oh, duh. Yeah. Excelgor, then a big gap to Infernape, and then it kind of makes more sense down there.
And then Goose saying
there is a raging debate whether you have an 80 speed tier or not on this team. TBD, I guess.
It's 80. I don't care.
We may never know. I agree with you though. And then you have a phaser. So
Milotic.
Exactly. Yeah, your team is pretty fucking stacked, if I do say so myself. So yeah, that's the teams, everybody. Looking forward to seeing how all these games play out this season. We've got I like that we were able to expand the league, bring in more coaches in not just this division, but every division. Exactly. Tons of new faces, lots of more creativity, and looking forward to see what kind of sets people bring in. Looking forward to see how accurate these PRs end up being. So who knows?
Pressure.
All right. Anything else you got to say, man, before we call it a day?
I think that's it. Like, very solid drafts overall. I think Top Div did a great job here with everything they need to do. Mm-hmm. The tiers are a lot more balanced than they were last season.
Right. I think I don't remember who it was. Somebody was saying there's no absolutely cracked super team, and that's just goes to show that we all have a decent idea of what we were trying to do with each of our teams. And even the bottom team on this list, it's just 1 or 2 transactions away from being significantly better. And I mean, it's like we said, that total point delta between 1 and 12 isn't really that
10.
big. Right.
It's just 10. Especially between 1 and 8 is only 5, right? It's just they're all really close together, all really strong teams, and anyone can really win this game.
Right, exactly. Alrighty, so that's that. Looking forward to a fun season. Good luck out there, everybody. Get creative. I want to see some weird tech because we will be doing Heat of the Week, so look forward to that.
Of course, yeah.
Alrighty, everybody. We will see you in the next one. Peace.
Adios.